Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to another edition of our Fear of Missing Out report. Yes, we don't want you to have that fear of missing out, so we bring you FOMO Friday every week, and we go over the stories of the week that you probably should know. Maybe some you've heard, maybe some you haven't heard about, but you probably should know at least a little bit about. And so that's what we do every Friday. And from a series of articles from the Daily Wire comes this very first one, and it's a little bit sad this week. Our opening story is about the plane crash, and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said on Thursday morning that a fairly experienced crew was on the Army Black Hawk helicopter that collided with an American Airlines flight near Washington, D.C. on Wednesday night before both aircraft crashed into the Potomac River. Now, 64 people, including passengers and crew, were on board the American Airlines flight 5342. It's a regional jet that was preparing to land at Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport when it collided with the military helicopter. And authorities said Thursday morning that they believe no one survived the crash and have switched rescue efforts to recovery efforts. Responders have recovered at least 28 bodies from the Potomac River. And Hegseth said the three soldiers on the Black Hawk helicopter were conducting an annual proficiency training flight and were wearing night vision goggles. This is what he says, a quote, "The Army unit involved was Bravo Company, 12th Aviation Battalion at Fort Belvoir. Hegseth said that it was an annual proficiency training flight, and when we look at the crew, not all kin have been notified, so we're going to withhold ranks and names at this point. We do know on our side who was involved." The Department of Defense has deployed an investigation team to look into the crash, according to Hegseth, who said investigators will come up with answers quickly. Well, that'll be nice. We anticipate, this is what he said, we anticipate that the investigation will be able to quickly determine whether the aircraft was in the corridor and at the right altitude at the time of the incident. He said, adding, "It's a tragedy, a horrible loss of life for those 64 souls on the civilian airliner, and of course the three soldiers in that Black Hawk." He said that they're all in our prayers. Now, Hegseth also addressed the media at the White House during a press briefing with President Donald Trump. During the briefing, Trump ripped the diversity, equity, and inclusion policies instituted by the Biden administration, and Hegseth assured that under the Trump administration, the era of DEI is gone at the Defense Department, saying the DoD will focus on putting the best and brightest in every position possible. He added that their standards will be colorblind and merit-based. The Reagan Washington National Airport and surrounding area have some of the busiest air traffic in the country, as military and government helicopters often fly near inbound and outbound commercial flights. Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy said Thursday morning that the crash was absolutely preventable. So we already know a little bit more. Sounds like it may have been an error on the side of the Black Hawk, but they were flying too high or something. But we're not exactly sure what happened at this point. Duffy's comments on this came after Trump addressed the crash in a late night Truth Social post, writing, "The airplane was on a perfect and routine line of approach to the airport. The helicopter was going straight at the airplane for an extended period of time. It is a clear night. The lights on the plane were blazing. Why didn't the helicopter go up or down or turn? Why didn't the control tower tell the helicopter what to do instead of just asking if they saw the plane? And this is a bad situation that looks like it should have been prevented." Not good. That's what he posted. Now, Wednesday's deadly crash marked the first major commercial airline crash in the U.S. since 2009. Isn't that awesome? That it's been that long since we've had one here in this country. And 2009 was when a Colgan air flight crashed as it was landing at Buffalo Niagara International Airport. All 49 people aboard that plane were killed. But turning our sights basically in the same area, though, Washington, D.C., but to a different story. This week was a week of confirmation hearings again. Last week we had some, and this week we had the confirmation hearings of RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, and Kash Patel. Well, I wanted to give you just a couple highlights here of some stuff, and some of them are a little bit funny. But Director of National Intelligence designate Tulsi Gabbard torched her detractors during her opening statement to the Senate Intelligence Committee on Thursday, addressing their likely attacks before they even had a chance to deliver them. yeah. Gabbard wrapped up her statement by predicting that Democrats on the committee, with whom she had previously shared a party affiliation, would challenge her loyalty to the United States and question whether she was a puppet beholden to President Donald Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin, and a host of others. In fact, here, let me give you just a taste of how she opened up her hearing.
Before I close, I want to warn the American people who are watching at home. You may hear lies and smears in this hearing that'll challenge my loyalty to and my love for our country. Those who oppose my nomination imply that I am loyal to something or someone other than God, my own conscience, and the Constitution of the United States. Accusing me of being Trump's puppet, Putin's puppet, Assad's puppet, a guru's puppet, Modi's puppet, not recognizing the absurdity of simultaneously being the puppet of 5 different puppet masters. The same tactic was used against President Trump and failed. The American people elected President Trump with a decisive victory and mandate for change. The fact is, what truly unsettles my political opponents is I refuse to be their puppet.
That was awesome. But if that wasn't good enough for you, Senator Amy Klobuchar, the Democrat, you might remember her as somebody who ran for president at one point, attempted to walk FBI Director Designate Kash Patel into a rhetorical trap during Thursday's hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee. But Patel appeared to be more than ready for her line of attack. In one instance, the Minnesota senator raised a question about a supplement that she said Patel had promoted that was advertised as minimizing the potential side effects of the COVID-19 vaccines. And here's what he said.
You promoted a COVID vaccine reversal or detox supplement. One scientist said, I quote, "None of these substances in any form would minimize side effects from a COVID-19 vaccine." That is preying on innocent people. Did you perform clinical trials before you made that claim?
I'm not a doctor, so no.
But you did promote this supplement and told people that it would reverse or mitigate the side effects from COVID vaccine.
Did I give people an opportunity to make an independent choice for what's best for their families? Yes.
You did that last year, correct?
I don't have it in front of me again, Senator.
But the funniest exchange came at the hands of Senator Bernie Sanders. Yes, on Wednesday during the hearings for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Secretary of Health and Human Services, which is what he's going for, the Democrats made fools of themselves, really, with Senator Bernie Sanders leading the way. What helped RFK Jr. in this hearing was that whatever mistakes he made were quickly covered up by Democrats who were out of their freaking minds. They were really out of their minds. They went crazy. And here's Bernie Sanders, if you don't believe me.
Let me do a last question because I'm running out of time. I think the gist of what you're trying to say today is you're really pro-vaccine, you want to ask questions. You have started a group called the Children's Health Defense. You're the originator. Right now, as I understand it, on their website, they are selling what's called onesies. These are little things, clothing for babies. One of them is titled Unvaxxed, Unafraid. Next one, and they're sold for $26 a piece, by the way. Next one is No Vax, No Problem. Now you're coming before this committee and you say you're pro-vaccine. Just want to ask some questions. And yet your organization is making money selling a child's product to parents for $26, which casts fundamental doubt on the usefulness of vaccines. Can you tell us now that you will, now that you are pro-vaccine, that you're going to have your organization take these products off the market?
Senator, I have no power over that organization. I'm not part of it. I resigned from the board.
That was just a few months ago. You founded that. You certainly have power. You can make that call. Are you supportive of this?
I've had nothing to do with
Are you
leadership.
supportive of these onesies?
I'm supportive of vaccines.
Are you supportive of this clothing, which is militantly anti-vaccine?
I am supportive of vaccines. I will. I want good science, and I want to protect.
But you will not tell the organization you founded not to continue selling that product. Thank you.
Bernie went on to repeat, denounce the onesies. Do you denounce the onesies? Anyway, it was hilarious. And he had, of course, right in the background pictures of these onesies. And anyway, RFK Jr. just went on to say that all these Democrats are opposed to me for partisan issues. They used to be my friends. This is what Kennedy pointed out. He said, they agreed with all the issues I've been working on my whole career. And now they're against me because anything President Trump does has to be discredited and derided and vilified. And of course, I mean, he's not wrong here, right? He's gotten a taste of what those liberal Democrats are up to. They're not your friend. They're there for their power and that type of thing. But anyway, I thought some of the quote of the week, though, had to probably belong to J.D. Vance. And I really liked Owen Anderson. Owen Anderson wrote an opinion piece. Owen Anderson is a professor of philosophy and religious studies at Arizona State University, and the author of such books as The 12 Arguments and The Declaration of Independence in God. And he wrote a little piece I wanted to share with you here because I thought it really did well when it came to what J.D. Vance had to say. And this is what he said. He said, sometimes history turns on a phrase. Patrick Henry had given me, give me liberty or give me death. Ronald Reagan gave us Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And now J.D. Vance, the vice president, has given us, I don't really care, Margaret. If you missed it, this new rally cry emerged during an interview between CBS's Margaret Brennan and Vance about illegal immigrants who weren't vetted for terroristic connections. When Brennan insisted, yes, they were, Vance cited an illegal immigrant who had planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma on Election Day last November. And Brennan perhaps believed this was a gotcha moment and asked, was he radicalized here or before he came here? Well, this is what Vance said. He delivered the line of the year when he says, I don't really care, Margaret. At last, a spine. At last, an end to the abusive empathy that has held our country hostage for far too long. The tyranny of the appeal to pity is what we're talking about. For decades, he says, the left has operated on two primary emotional threats that happen to also be logical fallacies. The appeal to pity, the idea that any demand for order, justice, or security must be discarded if someone somewhere might feel bad about it. The appeal to fear, fear being called racist, a charge wielded so indiscriminately that it has lost all meaning save a tool for manipulation. Both of these threats are failing, and Vance's blunt response encapsulates why. Brendan's question was an exercise in obfuscation. Well, sure, he was planning a terrorist attack, but was he radicalized before he came here, or was America to blame? The correct response to such nonsense isn't a 15-minute forensic analysis of his ideological formation. It's, I don't care, Margaret. Because the problem isn't when he was radicalized. The problem is that he was here in the first place, and he shouldn't have been. Moving to the United States is not a universal human right. Universal human rights are things that all humans always have. Most humans lived before the United States came into existence, and yet they had human rights, meaning it's not possible for them to have had that right. Therefore, it's not universal. Those who live today have the right to improve their own living conditions, but there is no obligation on the part of the United States to move the population of the world here because they haven't straightened out their own countries. The usual left retort is, their countries are in ruins because of us. There comes a time to grow up and face your own problems. Take responsibility for yourself. It's a kindergarten lesson. Many of these places have been this way for centuries, and some even before there was a United States. Passing the blame won't make your life better. The left has long weaponized compassion against the very people tasked with upholding the rule of law. The formula is simple. Ignore or downplay the crime, then shift attention to how the criminal and family feels about facing consequences, and then insist that enforcing the law is cruelty. Brendan's entire exchange with Vance was built on this faulty foundation. In the modern leftist mind, it's not enough to ask, did this man illegally enter the country and plan an attack of mass murder? One must also consider, how would he feel if we deported him? Or what would I feel like if I lived in that country instead of the United States? Sorry, Margaret, we don't care. Write about it in your diary. Of course, he says the merciful thing, the merciful crowd has its limits. Mercy, as it turns out, only flows in one direction. Consider Bishop Booty, who recently, we talked about here on the podcast, took it upon herself to lecture President Trump on being merciful. According to the good bishop, mercy demands that we not consider how or why someone broke the law to enter this country, not consider who they harmed, but only how they might feel when they are held accountable. Funny, where was this mercy when the unborn needed it? Bishop Booty has encouraged the murder of untold thousands of unborn babies. Their silent cries drowned out by the very same compassion industry that tells us terrorists deserve our understanding. The bishop is not alone. The Christian philosophy professors are coming out in droves to post on social media that one cannot be a Christian and support Trump. These same professors smile approvingly as abortions occur and God is mocked at their universities. And the same voices that insist we extend boundless mercies to criminals and lawbreakers have no interest in mercy when it comes to the most vulnerable. It's almost as if this isn't about mercy at all. Newsflash, it isn't. It's about manipulation. Thankfully, Conservatives are finally refusing to play this game. The age of emotional manipulation is coming to an end. Vance's "I don't care, Margaret" is more than a quip. It's a declaration that we will no longer be ruled by guilt trips and crocodile tears. Let's put that together with what he says I consider to be the classic Trump quote about reforming higher education. Let's get the Marxists, the maniacs, and lunatics out of our universities by no longer offering free government money for God haters. Quote, but how will that make them feel? Unquote. Do we care? They have opposed the truth and will face worse consequences if they don't repent than losing a federal grant. Too much is at stake, and we have a country to defend and rebuild, and we have a Christian faith to proclaim and protect, and we have families to raise who will love God, love the truth, and we will not be bullied into submission by those who would trade the hard work of justice for the cheap grace of emotional blackmail. The left wanted a national conversation. They got one. And now, every time an activist, reporter, or radical professor tries to steer the discussion away from reality and into an emotional cul-de-sac by using their standard appeal to fear and appeal to pity, Americans have a ready response. I don't really care, Margaret. So, like I say, I had to share that with you. I thought it went very well with what we were talking about here, and you know, again, he's not wrong, right? He's not wrong. I would love to hear from you if you disagree with that in any way. That would be a great conversation. Well, turning our focus away from Washington D.C. a little bit. And many of you know, if you've listened to the podcast any length of time, you know I'm a big basketball fan. I do like the NBA. I'm a big Portland Trailblazer fan, have been for years. And there's another scandal that is happening within the NBA. This time, federal prosecutors have launched an investigation into Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier for allegedly manipulating his performance in a 2023 NBA game as part of an illegal gambling conspiracy. Yeah, federal investigators are focusing on a March 23rd, 2023 game that Rozier exited early with a reported foot injury, finishing with 5 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 steal after playing under 10 minutes, according to the Wall Street Journal. Rozier did not play a game for the rest of the season after that, and authorities became suspicious when a known gambling ring placed massive bets on his performance that night, prompting several sportsbooks to stop taking bets on Rozier and a review of betting records. Here's the quote. In March of 2023, the NBA was alerted to unusual betting activity related to Terry Rozier's performance in a game between Charlotte and New Orleans, and did not find a violation of NBA rules. This is what the NBA spokesman Mike Bass said. Well, the league is now cooperating with prosecutors as they investigate Rozier's possible ties to a gambling scheme involving John Tay Porter, who was banned from the NBA last year after pleading guilty to criminal conspiracy charges similar to the one here with Rozier's case. According to CBS, quote, an investigation found that Porter relayed confidential information to bettors and agreed to fake an injury or illness to remove himself early in 2 games to ensure bettors would win wagers on his individual statistics. Porter pleaded guilty to criminal conspiracy last year and is currently awaiting sentencing. Well, Rozier, he's actually a 10-year veteran. Boy, time flies. He has 642 career appearances. Joined the Miami Heat after stints with the Boston Celtics and the Charlotte Hornets, and he has averaged nearly 12 points per game this season while coming off the bench for Miami. The same suspicious shift that led the sports book dropping wagers on Rozier also raised red flags for federal authorities, who are now examining whether Rozier's early departure was part of a deliberate plan. And although the NBA's own review initially concluded that Rozier had not violated league rules, officials have acknowledged that the federal probe may uncover new information tied to the alleged collaborators outside the league. And while Porter's role in an illegal betting operation led him to plead guilty to wire fraud conspiracy last July, the circumstances surrounding Rozier's alleged involvement will be scrutinized in the context of his more established NBA career. As the inquiries progress, league officials and federal prosecutors will continue to collaborate in an effort to determine whether any further legal or disciplinary action is warranted, as they say. So, yeah, not great news, obviously, for the NBA. Another betting type scandal is going on. And speaking of not very good news, I don't know, maybe you might view this as good news, or maybe view this as not good news, but we wanted to end on this, and this is about the Little House on the Prairie. Fans of the classic TV series Little House on the Prairie are in an absolute panic right now that Netflix announced a reboot, saying its new version would be a re-imaging, as they put it. They use the word re-imaging of the beloved series that aired from 1974 to 1983. Laura Ingalls Wilder released 8 Little House books in the 1930s and 1940s, with a 9th book actually that was released in 1971 after her death. And her books, which sold more than 73 million copies, 73 million, were inspired by her childhood in the American Midwest in the late 1800s. And the books were later used to develop, of course, the NBC series Little House on the Prairie, which aired for 9 seasons. The series is still incredibly popular amongst nostalgic audiences and new fans alike. They're actually gaining new fans. The reboot's description says this. It says, part hopeful family drama, part epic survival tale, and part origin story of the American West. This fresh adaptation of Laura Ingalls Wilder's iconic semi-autobiographical Little House books offers a kaleidoscopic view of the struggles and triumphs of those who shaped the frontier, unquote. Ooh. The new show is also described as a reimaging of the treasured novels. Well, social media users immediately reacted to the announcement, saying they feared the reboot would ruin the revered series. Megyn Kelly wrote on X that Netflix, if you wokeify Little House on the Prairie, I will make it my singular mission to absolutely ruin your project. Wow. Yeah. Here's another quote. I look forward to the episode where Doc Baker begins transing all the kids and Mary teaches us that blind people can't see gender. The liberal turned conservative Brandon Strackla actually came up with that one. Here's another. They're going to ruin it, and that was my first reaction too. How will Netflix turn Little House on the Prairie into an inclusive circus? So anyway, there's a lot of people that are not super happy with Netflix right now, and the fact that they're redoing it. Who knows? I mean, maybe it'll be good. Why don't you let me know? Are you going to want to see any of this? Are you going to just leave it alone and say there's not a chance? I don't want that to be ruined. I would love to hear from you on it. Of course, you can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. Thank you very much for listening. This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.